Hi, everybody, and welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Tommy, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co host, Aaron.
Hello, everyone.
And tonight, we're revisiting Knots Landing with our segment, The Abbey Scale. And as always, we're joined by our resident Knots Landing historian, Lynn, and our Knots Landing Season 4 superfan, Bill.
And since our last episode, we have been to the cul-de-sac.
Yes, we have.
Nice.
I'm jealous.
So let's roll the credits and we'll get right into it. Okay, so episode 15 is called To Have and to Hold. And Mac and Karen are in wedding hell.
A little bit.
A little bit.
So they can't agree on anything. They can't decide if they want traditional, if they want the cake topper, where they want to have the wedding.
Matchbooks.
Matchbook.
It's
Oh, that's
1983. Matchbooks.
That was funny. It's like, who's matchbooks at their wedding?
Not Aaron and John, obviously. Huh?
No.
It's okay.
Now it wouldn't be matchbooks. It would be like vapes.
Charging ports.
Oh yeah. So I don't know. I feel like this was kind of like a filler episode. I enjoyed it, but I don't know. Lynn, you have notes?
I have notes. I feel like this was also, besides the Karen and Max storyline, this was Val's next book getting leaked to the press and that coming out everywhere. So besides To Having to Hold, this is kind of like a big monkey wrench in the what's left of the Gary-Val relationship, because Gary sees the paper, Val sees the paper, Gary gets upset and comes over to Val's house yelling at her, how could you do this? And Jeff is there being like,
oh, macho.
Gary out in the cul-de-sac. So
okay, so now having been to the cul-de-sac and knowing how short the block actually is, I was like, wow, they really did a lot with cameras, making the block look so longer. Right, as the car comes racing down the block.
Right.
It really takes away the effect when Valine walks across to get to Abby's house. I'm like, girl, that's like 3 steps.
Really?
You were walking in place.
Wow. Looks like it's so far away.
It would have been like out the door there.
Although there was a scene where they showed him whip around the corner in the car.
Yeah.
And that looked like more accurate to how it looks. I was like, okay. It
Is the outer street a main road? Because it always looks like a main road.
It's not a main road, but it's like
more heavily trafficked road.
You turn off a main road, and then you're on a side street, and then you make a left onto another side street, and then a left into the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
My God, if I could buy one of those houses.
I really like Gary's black car. I don't think I've seen that in any other episode before this.
Yeah, he kind of holds on to that for a little bit too. That's kind of his little hot rod car.
Is this the episode that starts out where Kenny tells him off?
Yes, it is.
It's like,
It is.
I love how Kenny and Ginger are getting nice scenes as, they kind of wrap it up now. But, Kenny, it's a great scene for Kenny.
It's like y'all are finally getting interesting as you're leaving.
It's like,
Isn't that always the way?
And Kenny's rightfully so upset because Gary, by Abby, they're treating this like a business deal versus Kenny put his heart into this. He wanted to make a business, make record deals, all this type of stuff. And Gary's kind of getting it. And I think it really just kind of hit one of Gary's blocks of being tempted to drink when Kenny followed him out into the cul-de-sac and yells at him and go, "Wow, Gary, you really are a Ewing after all." And then he turns and looks over and sees Val, and she's just there.
Right.
Kenny knew how Abby worked. It's his own fault.
True.
Well,
Yeah.
Ginger kind of warned him.
True.
Yeah.
So see, he didn't even listen to his own wife. So know what? His own fault. Plus,
And
he
then
still
Lou-
had a pretty sweet deal, like working for Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, it
He was
could
being
have been
bullheaded, right? Yeah, he could have done it. But I love that Lily Mae says, everyone's seeing what Gary's about now.
I'm
So
with
one
Ken-
by one, everybody's kind of learning about Val's pages from the book being leaked to that tabloid,
Yep.
and they're not really sure if Gary knows, and that's why he comes storming the cul-de-sac, right? Once he finally reads it, when he's at Daniel
Yep.
and CG's reading it with the musicians.
The musicians are laughing, and she's like, "That's not nice. Stop!" And then he walks
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
I like how once he goes to read it, they all kind of slowly walk away.
The
It's so
exit
interesting
stage,
just how
right?
gossip used to spread. Now it's just like, ooh, let me tell Tommy.
I know what a
Right.
different show. Like if this was like social media instead of
Oh, it would have been all over, right? Yeah.
they would save so many scenes because people would just know.
Because I found myself going, wait, how have you not read this paper yet? But then I'm like, not every.
What's funny is they all talk about like it's a tabloid, like the National Enquirer or something, but then they all have a copy. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Right. So Jeff is at the house, right? Doesn't he hit Gary?
Yeah.
Does out in the cul-de-sac, he and Gary are fighting, and he's trying to push Gary to leave, and Val's yelling at Mac because Mac's outside playing basketballs with the boys, and Mac comes over and grabs Gary from behind, and Jeff uses that as a sucker punch on him.
I was like, how Michael was like, round one, or whatever he said.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Max says cheap shot, tough guy, or something like that.
Right.
I thought it was funny because Val's initial instinct is always to run to Gary. So when that scene first started with them storming out to like get him off the property, she initially was the one that was running out after them to stop it.
Right.
But then it almost looked like she was holding Lily Mae back because Lily Mae wanted a piece.
It's also interesting how, they're dealing with Gary's addiction, and Val's addiction is clearly Gary.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Emotional.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
So is this
there.
the episode where Gary asks Abby if they could have a discussion about everything that's been going on and kind of like weigh out like the lies, the good decisions, the bad decisions, how they got to where they are?
This is where he starts, right? Yeah.
Because he says he tells her, "I'm coming apart here," and he's
Yeah,
like,
I'm
"We
on the
gotta
deck.
spend
They're on the deck, right?
tomorrow to talk." And then
Yeah.
she gets up early and gets ready, and she's ready to leave, saying, "I've got plans all day long." And Gary's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Right.
So Abby's
She got
never
a
seen
picture of
him.
it.
Abby's never seen him undone, like because she came to town after his season 1.
Right.
Oh, that's
Right.
true.
she hasn't seen him spiral that much yet.
So she knows he's an alcoholic. She just doesn't know how bad he can get.
Mhm.
Right.
And it doesn't
Right.
seem like she really cares either. As long as she
Right.
got him money.
Mm.
So
Doesn't
there were
care.
a few scenes where he goes to the bar, he puts his coffee down, he pours the drink, and then they show him outside and he's with the drink. And I'm like, did he drink? Like I was a little bit confused.
And that
But
it
then
ended that way, that he's just sitting out on their beach house patio looking at the water, and he's
Yeah.
got a glass of alcohol, but we don't see him drink.
That's that episode. It ends with him holding the glass, and he's on the after they show Karen and Mac finish, and then it's just him on the balcony
Yeah.
Yeah.
holding the glass. Yeah.
And I feel like he didn't drink because we know how he can get it from just one drink.
Mhm.
And they made such a big deal in the next episode about showing him take.
Oh
that
my
drink.
God. Yeah.
So I think maybe he just poured it and was just kind of like holding it and like looking at it and kind of debating if he was going to.
Right.
He's the Sue Ellen of the show.
Yeah.
He's the Sue Ellen.
Yes.
Yeah, he is.
Yes, it's true.
What'd you think of Mac and Karen's wedding? That they just couldn't deal with everything happening at Daniel, and they just up and jumped out of town. Which I know a couple that has done that. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
I am not getting married at a Little Beach Chapel in Vegas. Sorry, Mac McKenzie.
I guess
You
Well,
gonna
I,
treat me like a lady. We gonna go
It's
to the
Karen's
courthouse.
second wedding, so Karen doesn't need the big wedding. She already had it.
it's funny when I watched this years ago. I thought they just left Daniel and like hopped in the car and went to Vegas, but obviously they went back to the house. Karen picked up her dress that she showed Ginger and Laura earlier in the episode, and yeah, and like so they packed a bag, I guess, and then left.
Unfortunately, Mac must have grabbed brown shoes with his black tux, and Karen
Right.
had put that out right before they got married.
That
At
was
first,
great.
I was like, this doesn't feel like something Karen would do, but it does feel like something Karen and Mac would do. Because that's just like their dynamic. And the
Yeah.
fact that they were like both fighting back laughing when they were hearing about the different packages,
Right?
I was like, this feels like them. So yes, I'm on board for
I
it.
thought it was interesting that the justice of the peace gave such an amount of time. If anybody has just cause why these two shouldn't be married, it's like, this is Vegas, land of quickie weddings. Do you really
Right.
think somebody's going to come barging through the door?
I liked how they had the giggles though through the whole thing.
James Lott Jr. is in the chat. He says CBS Knots Landing is here. Oh, you posted it.
Nice. Hey,
You
James.
got a fan.
So, yeah, I was on board for them getting married in Vegas.
Well, I wasn't on board with them going with the cheapest package. If we're gonna do this, we're gonna go big. We want the deluxe.
I thought they did the deluxe.
No,
No, they did a cheap one.
they did the deluxe was the cheap one. They needed the super deluxe.
The super deluxe, they actually throw the rice. The deluxe one, you just get the rice.
Okay.
Oh my God, queers and soap shit. Well, John wants to get ordained. I'll take the photos. Let's go open a wedding chapel in Vegas.
There you go. Nice.
You can marry me and Greg. We'll be your first clients.
Oh, oh.
Well, this is never gonna happen then.
Oh my God.
Ah,
Just kidding.
He's not wrong.
We'll tell Greg it's part of the empire. It has to happen.
So how would you guys grade this episode?
7. I mean, I
7.
didn't hate it, but it wasn't my favorite.
I'd give it like a 5 or a 6 because I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel like a big episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
6 to 7, I'd say, for myself. Yeah.
Alright. Bill?
7. 7. Yeah.
7?
Yeah. Doesn't really advance things, but it does break out the whole Val thing, and what does the headline say? Women and booze made my life a living hell. They show that headline over and over again.
James said find him a man and you can marry him, Aaron.
Oh,
Aw. And the wedding chapel.
There ain't
In
many in
Vegas.
Arkansas, so I'll start looking when I move to LA.
So the next episode is A New Family. That's episode 16.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric's kind of having a rough time acclimating to not necessarily Mac being around, but taking on the man of the house role that he's kind of taken on the last year and a half.
Right.
Poor Eric. I love Eric.
I was
Yeah.
thinking about that
I felt
before
bad for
we
him,
got
Sean.
online tonight, and it made me think back to season 2 when Sid decided that he was going to have the surgery and he got to see all his kids for the last time. And
Right.
Eric was the last kid in the room with him. And Sid looked at Eric and he said, I can count on you, son, can I? And he's like, yeah, Dad. And he goes over and he kisses his dad and he leaves. And I think if you're trying to really tie things back, Eric probably took that really to heart. And Eric, I think, is a lot more upset, not with Mac, who he likes, but he feels is probably coming in and replacing that role, but with how his mom is taking all this, because his mom was very much like, oh, Mac will take care of that. Mac will do that. Mac will do that. You don't have to do it, Eric. And she really pushed Eric aside and made him feel quite
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I always think about Eric sitting in Sid's car after he passed away.
Right.
And then Karen when she was like selling and giving away everything and how upset he was about that.
Yep. Again, when he got upset with his mother for just making a decision without including him, and she
Right.
just sold the car and told him about it after the fact.
That's right.
it's interesting because we're also kind of led to believe that Mac's the problem, and then when he actually has a talk with Mac, it ends up being you need to have a talk with your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which like, does that happen, or are we just gonna brush over this and then the scene happened?
Yep.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I always liked how like they gave the kids like little side stories, and it kind of developed their characters over the years, so that they could be bigger characters later on.
Although Eric and Michael spent a lot of time playing basketball in the driveway. They must be in 100 episodes.
True. Basketball, and they have a few with football because that's where we've got the scene with Lily Mae telling them to be sweet, and they're playing football out the cul-de-sac.
So Gary takes a drink. We said this before. They actually showed him take the drink.
Which, if they know he's an alcoholic, why do they have a fully stocked bar in their little house? Because Abby
Okay, I
can
thought
throw
exactly.
I asked the same thing.
Because Abby's a little too naive, I think.
Yeah, and then I thought, well, Abby would be like, well, just because he can't drink doesn't mean I can. So,
Yep.
but again, she doesn't know how bad he could get.
Right. Right. She wasn't there for that.
So, oh god, this is when the infamous scene happens where he storms the studio
Okay.
and he screams,
bad.
"We're ruining lives!"
That's
I feel
like,
bad because that shouldn't be funny, but his face, the expression on his face, just makes me laugh.
I think
I have to say, this is Ted Shackelford's hammiest episode in the entire series. He chews the wallpaper in this one. It's
You're
just-
ruining our lives.
We're
And then I
ruining
let it fall down
lives.
slowly.
I remember seeing an interview with Ted where he mentions that he's like watched back scenes and he hasn't always been happy with his choices, and I wonder if this is one of the scenes he
Oh
was.
my
thinking
god, it
of.
has to be.
If this is one of the things, then I'd be surprised.
Well, what leads to him doing that is he goes to see Richard, and then when he finds out that Abby's been charging Richard,
Yeah.
installments or whatever it is,
right, exactly. Versus just being a friendly loan. No, she's got payments that need to be made.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we have Chip just coming in and out of Val's house like he pays rent.
Right.
Middle of the night, Val's up waiting for him. She wants to talk to him. He just wants to go to bed. And I feel like he kind of strategically let her know that Gary was drunk, knowing that she would kind of be
Not
distracted by that.
Well, he spent that whole episode working Diana, working CG,
Yeah.
working Lily Mae, all trying to convince him, tell Val to hire me as a publicist because he was trying to land that job.
He's
At the place
hustling more
that
than
he-
I do.
I mean, he leaked that book, and then he's trying to still come out from under it and talk to Val. And Val, at one point, looks at him and goes, "How stupid do you think I am, Chip?"
Oh yeah, that's great when she says
I
that.
love what she did. I was like, good for you, Val.
Yep,
Get
good
him,
job,
because
Val.
there
Right.
are 3 people in that house, and you know your mama ain't gonna leak those pages.
Right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's this episode or the next episode when he says, "I'll just move out," and Lily Mae doesn't argue. She says, "I think that's a good idea." That's not the response he was looking for.
No.
Then he puts on the waterworks to try and make her feel bad, so that she'll give him another chance.
Yep.
Mhm.
And she says, "I'm keeping an eye on you."
This is also, this episode 16 is the episode where we're really starting to see Laura pull away from Richard. And they're in the kitchen together, and he's like, "Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that." And she's like, "No, I'm going to CG's recording studio." And he's like,
Right.
"Well, we'll have dinner afterwards." And she's like, "I don't know, it could go late." And he's like, "Well, have CG come over here then." And then he leaves, and Laura's just kind of side-eyeing him as he walks out of the room.
I was surprised. Like, first, I got to mention this. Whoever cut her hair,
I was gonna say Laura got a haircut.
Between this previous
Right.
episode and when she
whoever, and I normally don't talk about someone's work because, it's hard work, I'm sure. But why?
That was a very early '80s classic cut though for a woman.
Actually,
Yeah.
Like I was
Very
telling
style.
Tommy the other day, I was like, I like 80s hair. I like big hair, and
It's like the Olivia Newton-John physical haircut. That's what she has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that little mullet she had going, I was like, that does not suit her. That was
Well,
wrong.
well,
Laura
get
is
used to it.
amazing.
She has it the entire next season.
I was going to say, get used to it.
Son of a
Yeah.
bitch. When I look at her, all I see is that hair. Because she had gorgeous hair. I loved her little hair.
Yeah.
I know.
And I get what they're trying to, spice it up a little bit, I'm sure. But
Don't worry, it grows out eventually.
It
Yeah,
does.
it does. It does.
I will
Well, I
say,
like it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's interesting how openly they talked about certain things that even when Melrose Place came around, they barely said Matt was gay.
Mhm.
But they're
Right.
like openly discussing, is Laura and CG having an affair?
What was funny on the rewatch is I love how actually Chip was the first one to bait Richard on that.
I was just gonna say he really
Chip
wasn't
was talking to
thinking that.
CG. Chip was talking to CG at Daniel in her dressing room, and again she blew him off, saying, I don't want you, I don't want you.
Right.
And Chip leaves, and he bumps into Richard, and Richard's like, "Hey, is CG going to sing that new song tonight?" And he goes, "Why don't you ask your wife?" And that
Right.
clicked with Richard right away.
It was
Yeah.
interesting too how he had his joke, and I hate how that's always a go-to for certain people. Which one's the man and which one's the woman?
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate that
So
joke.
his little comments, he made it seem like he had a legitimate question, and then he kind of it's asked as a question, but it's kind of more comes off as like a statement, and he doesn't even wait for the answer. He literally just says, "Which one's the man?" and walks away.
And I feel like that was his way of saying, "So, are you a lesbian?"
Yeah.
Without saying, "Are you a lesbian?"
Well,
And
he
then the
went on
next
quite-
episode, he's like, "Which side of the bed do you sleep on?" Like, ooh, sit
Right.
down. It's
See, if this was now that like today, Laura would have said the left. I don't know. I just like,
But
like in her mind, I feel like she would have given him an answer because that's the type of woman she is. She doesn't back down from her. She's thoughtful and caring because she knows what he goes through, but she's still not scared of Richard.
See,
You
I'm
know-
having an internal struggle because this is the season where I like Richard, so I kind of feel bad for him.
yeah.
Oh, I have no level. I'm like,
He's-
I also
He's
feel like they haven't really written much for this couple this season, and I don't know if it's because Constance was a new mom and they were just had limited screen time because they
Maybe.
have had issues in the past. We've seen it. Richard was a dick to her.
But you know what's different this time?
I felt like they were kind of on good terms and they were kind of working
Yeah.
on the marriage. And
all
things were
I know.
Well,
I
that's
wish
why.
CG
I think.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's all right. Having seen this season many times, I watch it differently this time because I think the reason why Laura's pulling away is that maybe Laura doesn't understand it, but I think she's starting to develop some feelings for CG, and she doesn't want any part of Richard. And that's what it is, because you're right, Tommy. Up until like maybe the 2 episodes before, they're in really good terms. They're doing okay with the restaurant. She defends them with the whole Abby thing, So it's interesting that all of a sudden she's pulling away. So I looked at it differently this time.
I just know I am shipping CG and Laura. It should have happened even for the 80s. It should have happened. I have never, I was like, they had chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were doing something.
They joked about it, and they got talked about in the press.
And I don't think they intended for them to have chemistry, but they just did.
Right.
I think if it was a different time, because they definitely, with the insinuations and everything, I think if they had developed that, maybe something would have happened.
Right.
I wish they would have kind of went a little farther into it. Damn the 80s. I want that Laura and CG. I have to write Laura and CG fan fiction now. She comes back to life in the fan fiction.
For a 40-year-old episode.
That was the 80s. Unfortunately, Knots Landing probably went, hey, what's going on in the Dynasty? Oh, Steven's straight this week? Okay, we can't. do a
Right.
lesbian
Right. You
story.
can't go that far. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of jumped around with stuff from other episodes, but
Well, still, she's not much in the season, because she says she's a good mom. But I still, when Laura's on the screen, her presence is just felt by me. I
Yeah.
love her.
She's got a big following. She does. She
Yeah.
makes a big impression.
Hmm.
and I never got it until this time around. But now I feel like I am Laura. I want to be an Abby, but I'm kind of a mix between Karen and Laura.
Tommy, you should have went over and stood in front of her house in Knots Landing and just had your picture taken. Done this.
It was such a like.
It was a surreal moment.
Very limited time, and we didn't know we were going there. I was still in my airplane clothes. I did not want to take pictures. I was in sweatpants. I did not want to take pictures in sweatpants.
He texted me and he's like, "We're going there now." I'm like, "Today? Okay, cool."
We'll see how.
And Greg was like, "Stand here," and we thought he was taking a picture, but he was taking a video. So we were like, "What's happening? I don't want to be in front of Kenny and Ginger's house. This is not
I
what I
was not
wanted."
angled properly. My belly was bigger than it was supposed to.
Oh, that's why there were just pictures of the houses and not you guys. Okay.
And the amazing thing is, the Miss Donna Mills even liked your video you guys posted out there online. So good job.
Wow,
She
really?
liked our video.
She did. She liked it.
The real
I just
Donna
thought
Mills.
she liked our Abby Scale tweet.
Yes. She liked the Knots Landing cul-de-sac video you guys posted too.
I'm
Wow.
not gonna lie. I actually, I may have messaged her. Big shot,
Maybe.
long shot, but who knows?
But I like this episode better because of the Gary excitement
Hmm.
and the CG stuff.
Yeah.
Val she just falls to pieces when it comes to Gary.
Well, and she told Karen she's trying to stay angry to hold
Right.
on to the anger because she knew, and she does,
Right.
she's fallen back into that cycle where she wants to be the caretaker. And so that's why it was great when Abby looks at Gary and says, "I'm not going to be your Valine. I'm not going to clean up your mess.
I'm not
Go
going to
out,
count your drinks.
Whatever. I'm not going to be going looking for you." Now, granted, she changes that and she's calling Mac plenty, but
Yep.
to his face, she's basically saying, "I'm my own independent woman and I'm not going to be your Val."
I was like,
Because in
"Ooh,
her
girl,"
own way, she cares.
Mhm.
Right.
in the Abby way.
When
I
Matt
mean,
calls her
Gary
and she
does
thinks she's
all
in the
the
bed by
PR
herself, or
investment,
with
so-
Gary, and she's by herself.
Right. She's like, "Oh, he
Yeah.
came home about an hour ago. He's passed out." And then she hangs up the phone and there's nobody in bed.
Because it's all about the optics. No, yeah, it's fine. I
Yeah.
have the situation handled.
And then Olivia has a bad dream and comes and snuggles with her.
Yep.
Mhm. Okay, so I don't really want to spoil anything, but I feel like we're only 2 or maybe 3 seasons away from Olivia's big story with the "Give Me the Keys."
Yeah.
For anybody,
4? He's still a ways off.
isn't it
It
like
happens
season
in
7?
season 8.
Oh, season
Like
8.
in the
Okay.
in the middle of season 8. Like it's not even in
Yeah.
the
Okay, 'cause
beginning.
I'm like-
yeah.
Wow, she must have like a really big growth spurts because she still looks like a
Okay,
little girl.
I thought the same thing because I was like, the other day you were playing Monopoly, little girl, and now you're like taller than me. No, I mean, that's exaggerated. But I was just like, dang.
So I think we covered everything on episode 16. What do you guys want to rate it?
I give it a 7.
7.5 because
I give it an 8. I just it's all building, and I just love the whole Gary scene. We're
I'll give
ruining
it an 8.
lives.
We're ruining lives.
Lives.
See, I just wasn't huge on because we did the Gary thing in season 1. Thought it was a little too soon.
But I love the way everybody's saying they're like, oh, he does this.
Yeah.
Or it's just a CG like, oh yeah, this is what Gary does.
Even Mac was
We've done
giving
it
him
once
quite a
on
big
the
break.
show.
Yeah. I'll give it an 8 as well.
Oh, this is the episode that ends with him showing up drunk at CG's apartment, right?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
because
I'll
the
bump it up
next
to a
episode
7.
is the morning after.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I like that he poured. So it's the morning after. He wakes up in her bed.
I love
Um,
CG's little apartment.
Love it.
It is so freaking cute.
Yep.
For somebody who's broke, she's got a decent apartment.
It's got cute
Yeah.
pillows, she's got little stuff on the wall.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was the 80s. Things were cheaper back then. You could be
She's
poor.
got one of
and
those
still live nice.
kaleidoscopes that Richard's looking through.
That's right.
I
That's right.
liked when she gives him orange juice. He's like, "You got anything for this?" And then he
Yeah,
like
he's like,
pours
"I
it
get
out
mean."
over the food. And she's like, "Really?" And he's like, "I get mean." And so she like finds vodka.
Oh.
I'm not having any of that.
I wonder if things would have been different and they would have had like social media and stuff when the show was out if they wouldn't have. I mean, that's the next episode, killed her off because of how popular she was. I wonder if they would have been like, ooh, let's change that.
Well, back then they were really good about writing a Bible, so they knew what their whole season was going to be about, and they had that planned. And she, I think, also wanted to be more of a singer, and so she's like, "Yeah, I'll come on here. This will give me some publicity." Blah 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 blah.
That's what she wanted. Yeah.
Yep.
It did, because I'm downloading her songs now.
There we go.
But it didn't work for her at the time.
Well, 40 years later, she's seeing results.
And she's touring, and good for her.
She
Yeah.
just had to be patient. She had to wait
This
for
is
me
the
to be
episode
born.
where Karen kind of tells Val, like, he's not your problem anymore. Like,
Right.
She's just flat out, this is not your problem.
But
Well,
yeah,
this is also, I mean, it started the previous episode, but this is where it's kind of getting around Chip Sly that Gary's sleeping with CG.
See, I think all of Chip's little lies are starting to fall apart too.
So Val hears it, Diana hears it, so everybody's talking about it.
this is also the episode where Gary's standing outside AA. He wants to go in, but he doesn't do it. He goes and gets drunk instead. Shows up at Daniel looking for CG and sees Val there with Jeff, and he gets mad and tears off out of there.
Okay,
Right.
he had a line. I think CG said, I thought you were going to AI. He's like, they don't let you drink there. I think he's like, funny thing, they don't let you drink there.
True.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, and he sees Val storms off, and Val's, trying to stay strong, but you could see her like falling to pieces on the
That's
inside.
right. That's right. Gary's
I
a better
feel
silly drunk than an emotional drunk, I think.
I feel for Val. If you've ever loved someone who has an addiction, you can see that struggle that she's going through.
So then Val gets this phone call from some news reporter saying, "Oh, your ex has been brought in for being drunk and disorderly." And she heads down to try and bail him out, but Abby's already there.
Yes.
And Abby sees Val, and I thought this was a great Abby Val scene because
Great.
Val tries to run away, and Abby comes out in the hallway, and she's like, "I'll take care of him now." And Val's like, "I see how you take care of him."
That was great.
And then she's like, "Well, you weren't strong enough. That's why he left you." And she goes, "And that's why he's leaving you now." And that was kind of a bitter pill for Abby to swallow because there was a lot of truth in that statement. And that got that CG jealousy really stirred up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says, I hope you feel even an ounce of what I felt when he left me. And she's like, but doesn't she say, who am I kidding? That's if you could feel anything at all.
Right. That's right. And then she storms off.
I love strong Val when she gives it to Abby. It's so good.
She turns away, a hair toss, and walks off. Drop the mic.
And see, Laura, that's why we keep long hair. So you can have that hair top.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Jeff Munson, God bless him, he's putting up with all that drama with Val
Yeah.
and still sticking around.
Yep.
Who do you think he is, me?
He seems to really like that.
I don't necessarily think they have the best chemistry. He's not my
Nothing.
favorite romantic
No.
partner, but
He has no chemistry with any of the cast. Not even Lily Mae.
Yeah. This
oh
is
god,
when
Lily Mae was like tuning her auto harp, and I was like, no.
No. That's right. No. Put that away.
I was this close to putting it in the trailer, and then I decided not to.
I've enjoyed her more here lately. Like Karen, I agree with Karen when Karen was there walking and talking about how she liked having Lily Mae around. I was like, you know what, Karen, me too.
Yep.
I never thought my mind would change, but yeah.
Tommy might be the one to maybe take the most to soften to her, but maybe he will.
No, I think I have, because like she's not irritating.
Yeah.
I like her as like a supporting, kind of supportive mother.
Mhm.
She's not really meddling like she used to.
Right.
I like her like this.
Once they
And she's
dropped
kind
the
of-
whole, she was so desperate to get into showbiz, and that went on and on and on.
Yeah.
Like, I like this better.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
gives the worst advice to Val, because everything she says, you just have to do the opposite, because it's always the worst.
See, I'd probably be the one to do exactly what Lily Mae said.
hmm
And now I'm
This is still the episode.
I like
two
when
where-
Karen first finds
Go ahead.
out that Gary might be cheating with CG. and her and Val both kind of go, "Poor Abby," and then they kind of laugh.
Oh yeah.
I did too. I was like, that's why we'd be friends.
Yeah. This is also the episode that we see CG looking around at the restaurant for sheet music, and she
Right.
goes snooping in Chip's briefcase, and she finds out his real name is Tony Finesse.
Tony
And he's
Finesse.
kind of a wanted man who's battered women in the past, and yada yada yada.
As soon as
Yeah,
she
and
found out, I was like,
Diana
oh,
walks in, and CG
Oh,
has
yeah.
the hidden behind.
Ship
I don't
around.
care that short. It looks good on her. It suits her.
yeah.
But it's so funny that she's like trying to claim Chip, and CG's like, "Yeah, you want him? He's all yours."
Yeah.
In her mind.
Yeah.
I know, poor CG.
Yeah, everybody's kind of like catching on to Chip, and they're just
Everyone's
kinda like,
dumping on her.
Everyone's so mean to CG though.
They are
because
They
of
are,
Chip
sadly.
in his lives.
I know, little bastard.
Mhm.
Because even she's like, I don't know why everybody hates me.
He should have been the one laying in the water like this.
God,
I
I
thought
was
you
so
liked. I
excited
thought you liked Chip, Aaron.
the last episode we were watching. I'm like, yes,
No.
good cliffhanger.
I think Chip is cute.
Ah, there's a difference.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
He's definitely that guy who's trying to fool all the women by being so slick, but the men are onto him kind of from the get-go. Except for Richard, he's a little bit naive, but
Right.
everybody else, like Max got his number. I think
Yeah.
Kenny's got his number. Jeff's got his number. It's like he doesn't pay the time of day to Chip the entire time when he was trying to impress Jeff Munson.
See,
Oh yeah.
I think Tommy and I would fall for Chip's act.
You would? You'd be like Willie Mae?
Yeah.
I would for
You would for a
period
little
of time.
bit.
At some point, I would probably catch on.
We like problematic guys.
I question things. Greg will tell you, I question things all the time, so I would probably catch on.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Wow, I'm not as stupid as I look," or "How stupid do you think I am?"
And then Chip would have been like,
How
look,
stupid do you
it's been
think
like
I
this for 6 months, honey. You haven't caught on yet.
Took
Sometimes
you a
I
while,
see
Val.
things and I just collect my evidence until I have a case. um, what happened? Oh, so yeah, Val is having meltdown after meltdown over Gary, and the last scene we see of her running on the beach
Oh yeah.
because the whole neighborhood's chasing after her.
She's
Yeah.
always running on that beach, too, it seems.
This time in a dress and a sweater, but whatever.
Oh my
But
gosh,
this-
did she run on the beach in episode 19 at the beginning and find CG? Please tell me she doesn't.
We're not going to give any of that away.
No.
Just checking. I could just see
Uh,
it.
Yeah, so this is one of the early scenes of her and Mac's relationship. I really enjoy. We don't see it often,
Yes.
but I really enjoy their scenes together. They have
Yeah.
the really nice friendship,
Right. They
I
do.
agree.
and I like that Karen's not threatened by it. Like when she walks upon them, they're hugging. Like she's not threatened by it. She knows that's her
That's
friend.
because Karen is a strong woman and she knows that's her man.
Yeah.
Karen also told Sid with his ex-wife, if there's something you need to do, go do it. So
Remember that? Oh, that was very...
Yeah,
Wow.
she lost me on that one, though.
sometimes I forget how unconventional Karen can be. I just think of her. I don't know. I guess I think of her as like a Brie Vandekamp. I don't know why. Like just this housewife. I don't know.
Well, that whole essence of her in season 1, where she's standing up for rights and all that, kind of gets dropped as the series goes on.
You know, people compare Knox Landing and Desperate Housewives, but to me now the only similarities are the fact that they all live in like a little cul-de-sac type thing.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
very
agree.
different.
I mean, and there's like 4 women. That's like,
Yeah.
I want to be friends with Val and Karen, Laura. I don't think I could be friends with like Brie, Gabby, Lynette, or Susan.
The one thing that Desperate Housewives maybe amped up a little bit more that Knots played on is Desperate Housewives had a lot of humor in it. And Knots Landing does. It's in much smaller stages, but for a nighttime serialized program. You know,
Mhm.
Dallas and Dynasty really didn't have that humor, but
No.
that's with that humor in there.
Yeah. I think Falcon Crest kind of does it too. They have a few comedic moments.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Do you want to
that was
rate
the
this one?
foul of it all. Where was Gary? He was just
Drunk.
drunk, promising he wouldn't do it again, and then doing it again.
Right. Right.
Was this the episode with the red sparkly outfit that CG was gonna wear?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is when Richard brings it to her apartment.
Right. This is when he brings it over and looks
Yeah.
through the kaleidoscope and asks which
And
one's
then
the
he
man.
asks which one's the man. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hang on. This is the next. I give this episode an 8.
Yeah, it's setting up for like people to kind of like hate CG and like what's gonna happen next.
I know, which pissed me off. I was like, don't hate her. She did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I get
That's what they
very,
want you to feel.
like, very
They did it
protective
right.
of CG. I didn't realize I would be. Okay, Lisa
Aw.
Hartman Black.
She's
She
great.
was
I love her.
Everybody did back then. Bill
Love her.
Clinton did back then, like I did. My cousins did.
Mhm.
My cousin named her firstborn after CG. So there's the CG
Ooh.
out there.
Oh wow.
Oh,
You know
really?
what? I would have had that photo she has at the restaurant on my wall, and people would have thought, he can't be gay. He's got that seat.
Well,
that photo.
Aaron, that was actually a poster sold in stores. Like she wasn't that popular as a singer, but they had her. Like they tried. They really tried.
I'm
And that was
sure
that
I
was
would've
out
had
there.
that poster. I
Where
would've
she's
had
against
that
the car
poster.
and her hair's all
Oh
that
no,
was
I'm
actually
talking about the Gene one.
right. She's got the jean thing. And, yeah.
Oh, what's she? I just.
She's
It's
leaning
the
against
big
the
one
car.
that's leaning
Yeah.
in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it's this fancy restaurant, and it looks like she's in lingerie.
Yep.
I think it's so-
Yeah.
I would
Well,
have
episode, episode 18 is called Celebration, and that sounds like it's going to be a nice, wholesome episode, right? Celebration.
It starts off so cute too.
She's riding her bike.
Her little bike while her song plays, New Romance.
She's got a
It's a
sexy poster
mystery.
hanging.
Mhm.
Her
Yeah.
little
Headband.
around her
Very.
head. She
Oh
was
yeah.
so freaking cute.
She's
It
80s
was almost
fabulous.
like, girl, this is your last episode, so we're just going to do it up real big for you.
I
Yep.
know, like, she's like,
And she's actually, and as she's bike riding, she's actually smiling. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, she's pumped. It's the start of her day, and it should be the best day. And it's like
Right.
that bike ride was the last good thing that happened because then she arrives at her apartment. And there's drunk Gary right away.
Right.
He's sobered up.
I was more concerned with like what she was going to do with her bike than with Gary. I was like, is she just going to leave it out there and like drag
It looks like she just left it
I
there.
was like dragging both of them. I was like, oh, okay.
I don't
well, it
know.
don't matter.
And the funny thing about this episode is everybody seems to know where she lives.
Right?
Even Jeff, like, when he showed up, I was like,
Yeah,
they
Jeff
would
shows
put
up
you in
and-
an apartment.
Like,
I mean,
Val
they
must look
would
in the
say-
yellow pages.
But Abby's the one who shows up first, and right away,
Right.
she's like, she wants to let herself in, and CG pushes her back, and she's like, "You don't own me." She's like, "You're a piece of property. You're a piece of meat." And she's like, "I didn't call myself a piece of meat. I said property." And then she closes the door, and sure enough, there's Gary drunk on the bed, and she puts a blanket on him and just rubs his shoulder, and it's like, oh, CG.
I love when Abby's telling her off, and CG says, "I'm terrified." And she's like, "You should be."
Doesn't she say something like, I don't make threats that I don't,
Right.
or promises that I don't follow up on, or something like that? And she's like, what are you gonna do? Kill me? You can't do that. And that's when she says, I'm like property.
Valuable property, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, girl, you just made the biggest mistake in
Oh.
television history.
Aaron's like, don't say kill. Don't say
Yeah,
kill.
never say, what are you gonna do? Kill me?
It's like the old horror movie trick, right?
Mhm.
Foreshadowing.
Chip
Might as well
is
go in a dark hallway, or an alleyway, alone at night.
Chip is like trying his hardest to now be like he wants to be in the baby's life and they could be
Right.
together and raise the baby on their own.
Because he realizes
Not good.
he's losing her. Yeah.
Right, he's got nothing.
He's like Sammy Brady. He will keep telling the same lie until the very end, no matter if his truth has come out or not.
hmm
I mean, she's
Oh.
calling him Tony. You don't understand.
Yeah.
And she basically tells him like, if you come to the concert, I guess, tonight. Like,
The
I'll tell
album
everybody.
party or whatever it is.
And I'm like,
Right.
ooh, girl, don't do that. Don't.
Right.
threaten
Because
me."
then he looks at her and he's like, you better not open your mouth. That'd be really stupid. Then I think at one point he even looks at her and says, shut up. And like gets
That-
really serious face. And you're like,
Yeah.
ooh.
He rough handles her a few times. She's like, fuck
Yes,
on
he
me.
does.
Yeah.
But then she goes over and cries about it to Laura. And Richard walks in and he totally roughhouses her. I mean, he grabbed
Terrible.
her by the back of her
I
hair.
know. I was like, no, CG,
Terrible.
no. I felt
Again,
so bad.
Pulls her hair and tosses her out with her hair.
Tommy has issues with Richard and his violence, and that was not a good look on him.
She was
at
even like, you're
all
hurting
there.
me. I was like,
And Laura says, I'll never forgive you
Like,
for
I'll
that.
never forgive you for
That's
that.
what Laura said, and that was
Ever.
so good. I mean, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back right there for Laura with him.
And it's a great pause on a soap line. I'll never forgive you for that. And then she wait ever. And then storms up the stairs.
Yep.
But also, they're kind of setting up the suspects. Nobody knows where Gary is.
mhm.
Right.
Nobody knows where Richard is, and he just kind of wanders into the restaurant later.
Same with
You're right.
Note
CG
tip.
comes back to her apartment, and Gary, was that when he left a note and he was just gone? And then we never see Gary the rest of the episode. We hear him,
Yeah.
but we never see him anymore.
Val comes to her apartment, and they have it out.
Well,
Is that
you're
because
right.
does Val go over there because she gets the first phone call and she hears Gary?
I was going to say, let's back it up. Because
she
Val-
thought Gary was over there.
Right.
Val's getting ready to go to the party at the restaurant,
Right.
and then Gary calls her, and Lily May's in the room, and she's like, "Gary, where are you?" And she turns around because she doesn't hear him, and Lily May's got her finger on the receiver.
Ah.
Going for the receiver.
I was
And
like,
she,
yes,
like-
Lily May, yes.
She's like, "Val, he's not your problem anymore."
And that's
Yep.
the gospel truth.
Yep. Yep.
You be sweet.
Sweet Pea. You be
then
sweet,
she's like-
Sweet Pea.
She's got nowhere to go, so she heads over to CG's because
But
that's the
people-
only place she can think of.
Before you get there, you know what I noticed this time that's so funny? Like when you want to just like throw clothes on and run out the door because you're in a hurry, like you throw on sneakers. Val puts on these big brown cowboy boots. Like what are you doing? I thought you were in a hurry.
That's what she does when she's mad. When she stormed over to Abby's to ask if she was having an affair, she had her cowboy boots.
I was going to say, she is from the South.
That's
Let me tell
true.
you, when
That's
John
true.
leaves the house, those boots come on.
Boom.
So,
These boots are made for walking,
yes,
so there they
are.
go.
We like our
Alright.
boots in the South.
So
she goes to see
Lily says
CG.
something like you weren't even woman enough to like keep him or whatever.
There's a
Something.
great scene. I love this scene.
Val got further through the door than Abby did, let's put it that way. But CG really read it to Val, and she's like, "How could
Yeah.
you write all that? How could you say all that?"
Uh-huh. And Val's like, shut up, and she like pushes her, and
She's like, "I've loved him more than anybody's ever loved anyone." And then
Right.
she's screaming at her and pushes her away, and clunk, CG hits her head. Well, CG's
I
awake, but she's like definitely hurt from this hit to the head.
She's like, get out of here.
did you think that was it, Aaron? That's how she died? She hit her head?
no, because I know I was thinking, okay, maybe she just had I don't know.
A concussion.
Yeah,
Well, you have to wait and see.
Well, and meanwhile, Chip came over with flowers during this episode again too, and again she's like, "You better get out of here." I don't
I wish
wanna
she would have
anything
said,
to
"Here,
do
you
with
take those flowers and shove them up your ass." That's what I wanted her to say.
I know.
So Val goes home and she's a mess, crying.
Mhm.
Jeff is there waiting to go to this party concert, and she's like, "I'm not going. I'm not." She's doing her little tantrum.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Lily May's like, "But I could still go, right?"
She's all dressed up, right?
You can get dressed up for nothing now.
Why doesn't Jeff give her a ride?
And they're all at the restaurant, and Jeff asks Ginger if she could fill in while he tries to locate where CG is.
Right?
Right.
Did the actress sing? Is
Because-
that really
well,
Ginger?
Yeah. Jeff
can
went over
sing.
to CG's and got the landlord or whoever to let him into CG's
Right.
in his park. And he has to even
No,
turn
no.
him
I mean,
away.
like, does the actress actually sing? Like, is that her singing?
Yeah, that's her.
That's
Really?
Ginger's voice. I mean, it was probably she's just lip syncing along to her own song, but yes,
Right.
that was her singing.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that
It's
was
not bad.
She really gave it all.
I wonder if that actress was upset at all how she's like, I've been on this show for 4 fucking years. And they bring on this girl and I can sing too.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Well, that's kind of her story.
I wonder if that's why she's like, no, I'm out of here.
Well, she finally got to sing her song, right? Remember when she yelled to see, "This is my song!"
Right? Right.
And that was she probably actually meant that when she said it. She's like, this bitch just showed up on my show.
I didn't even realize that's her song.
That's the song that she sang in the other episode.
wow.
That was her
Yeah,
I
song.
never even
You're
put that
correct.
together.
Yeah.
Bill's got it. He knows it.
Well, you watch these a million times. I love this episode too. So,
This is a big favorite for a lot of people.
and we didn't really talk about how Kenny was sulking through the whole episode, and Mac kind of picks Ginger up and kind of
Max
flirts with
giving
her a
him
little bit.
crap. Max trying to get him off the couch.
Yeah.
We saw
So-
Aaron Monty when they were walking through the park.
Aaron Molly. There was Aaron Molly scene, Aaron.
I thought about that. Thought of you, Aaron, when I saw that kid.
When she picked up her daughter, it was like, she and I love you. I was like, you don't know that child loves him. She can't form a she
You have a wife and daughter who love you.
And I was like, you don't know that child. I looked at John. I went, we don't know that child loves him.
Oh, funny.
But and
We
then
never
Kenny
see
came in his tux and his slick back hair and all ready to
He
go.
did look fine then.
He did look good. He
Oh,
does look good.
Hello, Kenny. Why didn't we
Yep.
have him show
Yes.
up more often like this?
But
Oh.
meanwhile, Val's at home exhausted, and she gets another phone call, and it's Gary
Yeah.
again.
She
And
doesn't
Gary
move
says-
though, right?
Well,
She's
she
like,
took
"Gary."
her phone, and then
Kinda
he just listens, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Val, it's all gonna be okay," and then the line just goes dead.
Yeah.
Doesn't she say, Gary?
She doesn't go, "Gary, Gary."
It's interesting. He's
Gary.
so drunk he can't make it out of the car to his house, but he can dial Val's phone number every time we turn around.
7 digits, bing, bing, bing. And he's got a dime or a quarter or whatever payphones probably were back then, because man don't have no cell phone back then.
He also used to live there, so he knows the number.
True.
I was
So- Wait,
This is
before
also
we...
the episode where Diana.
Yes, let's
catches
talk about that.
Planning to move to New York.
Right.
Yeah. Tells Karen.
So she says, "I have money. I have
Oh.
connections in New York," and he's like, "Oh, do you now? Maybe this could work."
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to win him over, and all she needed to say was, "I got connections." He would,
I was
I would have taken.
shocked at how adult and not screeching Diana was when she told Karen.
Yes.
I
Very
was
calm.
like, wow, very mature.
Yes.
And
Although
Karen-
very subservient. When Chip's ready to go, I'm going with him. Like,
Yeah. But and Karen kind of knows at this point that she kind of has to take it easy with how she reacts when it comes to Chip. Because we
so then
saw
she can. So it was funny when she confronted him at the restaurant, and she's like, "I hear from Diana that you're going to New York. I'll do everything in my power to make sure she doesn't go with you." And he just gives her that fly dog smile right back.
it's a great Karen line, though. She was
Oh,
great.
it is.
Yeah.
and
Shoulders back, and she just delivers it right to him.
so I noticed. So Ginger is like so happy she's getting to perform her song. She's the only one having a good time. Everybody at this party is miserable.
Yeah, because Abby's like looking everywhere, going, "Where's Gary? Is anybody seeing Gary? Is Gary here?" Because now Abby's starting to really get nervous that Gary is missing, because what is going to happen? Because
Yeah.
the chance to
Or
marry.
she may think, maybe CG and Gary have run off together because
Oh,
now
we
they
didn't
wanna
even
go to be
mention-
friends.
Abby was trying to get the lawyer to bring up some document where she basically has power of attorney over
Right.
Right,
Gary
if he's
and business.
incapacitated,
Jim
she
Westmont.
would get control.
She says like illness and she flat out says alcoholism. And Gary hears him. He's in his boom booms, by the way.
Right. Oh, yeah, I saw that.
He had red boom booms on this time.
That's
Not-
when they show when he moves off the bed, you get a little bit of a glimpse.
I was like, ooh.
I thought of Tommy right away when that happened. Oh, funny.
That's
yeah, and
very
he
funny.
overhears that conversation, especially when she says like alcoholism.
man.
That's right. She said that.
Yeah, so she's always
Pretty
looking out for her best interests. She doesn't want
So
to lose that
that-
money.
Well, it's very funny when Max says, "Oh, maybe Gary, CG, and Richard are all having a party or something," and Laura's like, "That's cute."
Oh
Was he
yeah,
alluding to a three-way? Or
Oh,
did I
maybe.
just make that up?
Maybe, but he just went over badly with everybody. It was just funny.
I didn't
Yeah.
really get the joke too well. I was like, is this a three-way joke or alcoholism joke or?
I think it just shows that he's awkward sometimes
Oh,
making jokes.
he
and,
is awkward. I think that's why I like
You
Mac.
know, right.
maybe Diana was having a good time. So Kenny, Ginger, and Diana were having a good time. Everybody else was
Right. That's
And
right.
Laura surprisingly wasn't having a good time because Richard wasn't there at the restaurant to help out, and she's
Right. I
even
will
telling
say-
everybody Richard's missing. I don't know where he is right now.
I
and she's
did
also
not-
worried that CJ's not around.
Right.
I think someone was mad at Constant during these last few episodes because one, the hair, two, that dress.
Ooh, you didn't like
Oh.
the blue and purple?
I did not like the blue and purple.
No.
Those colors do not belong together.
Yeah.
Watch, I probably wore something blue and purple too. Don't get called out for it.
But then Richard does show up, and he's just being really kind of sourpuss about the whole
Right.
thing and just dealing.
And
And
she
so
says,
those-
"No one's seen CG," and he's like, "Oh, it's my lucky day, my lucky night."
But yeah, this was a great episode. I would actually give this episode a 10.
I was gonna say I'll give it a 10 too.
10. It's one of my favorite episodes of the whole
Across
series.
board. We'll just say 10s across the board. I loved
Better.
how it closed out with Ginger singing the song, and then it's silhouettes to the giant pictures CG behind, and then we switch to the water, and it's
I
very
know.
dark at night, and there's that body just floating, and that's how it freeze frame ends, and you're just like, uh-oh. I remember being a kid watching that and being in shock.
I was
Shocked.
upset. I was
Then I
upset.
saw my family over the weekend who lived like an hour and a half away, and we were all talking about that episode and what happened, and we were in disbelief.
I was in shock too because when Sid died, it was kind of because he was a leading character and Don Murray was a big deal. It made all the TV columns and stuff that he was leaving the show. Nobody talked about her leaving the show, and she was so popular. I loved her, and then I didn't want, even though it was obvious it's her, I didn't want to believe it was her. I said maybe that's Ginger or maybe that's Laura or something.
Okay.
Like,
I had a similar reaction the first time I watched it because I remember I found Knots Landing. It was the end of season 3. It was when Gary got caught cheating and Val moved out. So I
Right.
saw that last scene where he's like, Val, Valene, Val. Like,
right, running with the car.
So then that was at 2 in the morning. So I was watching Knots Landing at 2, 3 in the morning for a while.
Right.
So this was, the
Thank
first
you,
season that I
SoapNet.
watched. Thank you, SoapNet. And
All right.
I was like, no, because I remember they kept showing they kept cutting to the beach, and I'm like, why do they keep doing that?
Right.
And then they showed the body, and I'm like, who is that? Because I felt like it didn't look like CG. It was like, huh? So I was like, thank God another episode was coming on right after it, because I was like, I need to know what's going on.
So,
She looked pretty.
Aaron,
She
you
looked good,
have
though.
or have not moved forward. You resisted watching the next episode, or tell us a little bit.
I haven't watched the next episode yet.
Okay.
Got it. So yeah, a 10 is a pretty high expectation. Next one will still be
10.
good. That's pretty impressive that we all said 10. That's
Yeah,
pretty
that's a
cool.
great
I think this is
episode.
my first 10 of the series.
Yeah. I'm
I'm usually around a 7, a 6 or
Yeah.
a
I'm
7.
interested to see Laura's reaction to CG's murder.
It's going to be so good.
Again, what I love about this story, and I was thinking about this, they only do this maybe 3 other times in the whole series where it's one storyline wrapping every major character in at
An
some
umbrella
point.
story.
An umbrella story, a real umbrella story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
They
in the
did
later
do it.
years of the series, it becomes very compartmentalized, but this was amazing. And
Yeah.
they'll do this again a couple more times, but it was the first time, and it was just great.
Yeah, they did it
Yeah.
really, really so well.
Yeah.
I think that's why they had to kind of, Tommy and Aaron have talked about how they kind of rushed the Karen and Mac marriage, but I think they kind of had to get past that.
They had to get it in.
They
Yeah.
had to spiral into this thing, what was happening with CG and the fallout and the suspects and everything. So the Karen and Mac had to be kind of well established and they could move on from that.
I don't
Right.
know if it's the way we've watched the season by breaking it up, that it almost feels like Mac's been around forever now.
I was gonna say I
Yeah.
does feel like Mac has been around for a
And
while.
then back then watching it when it aired week by week, and then having breaks in between episodes sometimes. I'm sure it just felt like the same, like probably even more.
Yeah.
But
Right,
he was
right.
on there in season 3.
No, he only just came on.
He just came on in the premiere.
He's in the first episode of season 4.
Wow, I swear he was on season 3.
No, Karen went on dates with like other random guys. in
Yeah.
season.
Okay, so yeah, I feel like Matt has been there longer than 18 episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is.
What's scarier, this is Lily Mae's second season as a regular.
Oh, I feel like she's always been on.
Oh, funny.
But yeah, so the next time we visit Knots, we're going to be finishing season 4.
Woo.
It's exciting.
Right. Very
We're going to
exciting.
lose a few
Yeah.
characters, gain a few characters.
You
Next
see,
season,
right now I can pretend that CG's not dead. And she's just laying in the water and she fell asleep.
she just
In the
Mm.
waves, it's just
Floating.
she's treating it like it's a waterbed.
she's just
Dreaming her
Aw.
successful career.
Maybe she'll wake up.
We're gonna change all that.
Aaron, do you have a hole in your heart?
I do.
I just think about Gary, Abby, Jeff Munson. They're all out money now because she's dead. like,
I want to have a hole in my heart for a while.
Oh,
aw.
But then a new romance will start, and I'm sure it'll be a mystery.
Aw. Oh, very good.
that's awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, as always, for Knots Landing.
That's a good wrap up. Thank
This
you.
was fun. Thank you. Thanks for
And,
having us.
hopefully, you guys will come back to wrap up season 4.
Have to.
Until next time, you can check us out on all the socials at Queers and Soaps, and we'll see you then. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.